So, you're a stills photographer and you're dying to get into the video game, but you're unsure of all the requirements. Sit tight, because I'm here to put things into perspective. What's up, Alpha Universe? Jacques Crafford here with another fun tutorial. For those of you who don't know me, I make videos for a living. I specialize in tourism, travel and adventure films. Check out my website and Instagram for info and updates. Now this video is the first of a 3-part series that focuses on getting maximum results with a minimum amount of gear. A less is more approach for the freelancer on the go. We'll look at the gear I use and also how you can start with what you have in your hand. Make sure you keep an eye out on the Alpha Universe for part 2 and part 3. Before we jump into gear, it's important to differentiate between stills and motion. A bunch of you might already know this, but if you're only doing stills, this quick recap might be of great benefit to you. So the first and most important difference comes in with post-production. Ignoring the fact that you now have to learn how to edit and piece together a story. The main challenge photographers face when starting video is actually when it comes to the alterations in post-production, like color grading and color correction. As a photographer used to shooting in RAW, you know how much can be done to these files in the edit. RAW files are essentially uncompressed and retains a lot more information in the file than what is seen with the eye, giving you more freedom to play with in post. With video, it's different, since the files coming out of the camera is compressed and simply unable to handle the changes to the same extent as a RAW file. This only means one thing. It's all about in-camera accuracy. You simply have to get the shot right, or as close to right as possible, before you take it into post. There's still some room to correct, but it's limited to a much larger extent. The two culprits here is exposure and white balance. Highlight recovery is already limited in photography, but with video it's even worse. Blown out highlights are really hard to bring back and there's very little room to fix without it being visible. An overexposed shot can't be brought down by much, and you can spot it a mile away. Bringing back the shadows and making the exposure brighter with stills is much easier, but with video you will see noise much quicker, and there's also a chance for artifacts or pixelation depending on your bitrate. White balance. I did an in-depth discussion about white balance in my video about getting great color in your films, so check it out on the Alpha Universe. Here's a short recap. White balance is so much more than just whites being white. It actually influences all the colors in your image, the most important being your skin tones. Photographers who shoot on RAW prefer to shoot on auto white balance, simply because you can always correct it without noticing a difference. This is not the case with video, and for this reason you have to shoot on either a custom setting or a preset that accurately renders the balance. When you nail your white balance in camera and compare it to a shot that was done incorrectly, you will quickly realize that the corrected one simply doesn't look the same. You can always make your image colder or hotter in post, but trying to bring back color from a compressed file will degrade your footage if pushed too far. Another big difference comes in with the shutter speed you shoot on. Now you already know that if you shoot photos at a lower shutter speed, your images will be more blurry, and shooting at higher shutter speeds will ensure for sharper captures. The same applies in video, although now you have to stick to a very specific shutter speed in order to have natural looking footage. Too low and your footage will blur. Too much and your footage will look choppy. This is called the shutter rule. The shutter rule states that your shutter speed should always be double than that of your frame rate. The standard frame rate for natural movement is 25 frames per second. If you had a camera that could shoot 25 photos per second and you can play back all 25 photos in order over the duration of 1 second, that 1 second will look like a video. Any frame rate higher than this is considered slow motion. For example, 50 frames per second is like taking 50 photos per second, and if you stretch it out over 2 seconds, you will still see smooth playback, although everything will be moving at half the speed. Let's look at some practical examples. In order to shoot at a low shutter speed but still keep your f-stop low for depth of field, you should use an ND filter. An ND is like putting on sunglasses for your lens and brings down the exposure that comes with a low shutter speed. I use a variable ND since it allows me to adjust the exposure quickly on the filter, so it's easy to get the right exposure once your shutter speed is dialed in according to your frame rate. The first example was shot at 25 frames per second at 50 shutter speed. Notice the natural blur that comes with the movement of the arms and legs. Now you can clearly see what happens if the shutter speed goes lower than 50. In the third example, the movements look choppy and almost too fast, so even though some people won't notice it, it still throws you off a bit. When you put the three next to each other, you can clearly see the winner that kept to the shutter rule, 25 frames per second at 50 shutter speed. But what if you don't have an ND, or you don't have the time to make the adjustments on your lenses? Having shot weddings for many years, I for one know that it becomes really challenging to stick to this rule and not compromise on missing valuable moments. There's only one workaround for this, and that is to shoot at a higher frame rate. If you shoot at 50 frames per second or higher, and you slow the footage down, this really reduces the choppiness, although there's still a few instances one would still clearly spot the difference. Moving water is the easiest way to identify if a shot was filmed at the right shutter speed or not. You can clearly see how choppy the drops are at a fast shutter speed and how natural they blur when done correctly. You can also see it in this example of the dress. Since the wind was blowing so fast, there was a certain choppiness to the movement. Sound. I kid you not when I say this. Sound is everything. I'm just making this percentage up, but I believe that a film is about 30% visuals and 70% sound. There's a saying that goes, people will forgive a bad picture, but never bad sound. From the music you select, to the quality of the sound recording, right through to the sound design, if you mess this up, you will mess up your video. What you hear and the quality of what you hear has a stronger impact on the viewer than any visuals, and it's also the main driver behind emotive storytelling. Here's an example.
انضرب البيت بيتنا انضرب لما انضرب البيت ما ضل عنا شيء قلت له لجوزي انه انا بدي اطلع على تركيا حتى لو بدي اعيش تحت شجره المهم بدي احمي اولادي. هلا خيالي كأم أحلامي إني أشوف أولادي في أعلى المراتب يعني. أما كامرأة يعني بحب يكون هيك إلي بصمة. انضرب البيت بيتنا انضرب لما انضرب البيت ما ضل عنا شيء قلت له لجوزي انه انا بدي اطلع على تركيا حتى لو بدي اعيش تحت شجره المهم بدي احمي اولادي. انضرب البيت بيتنا انضرب لما انضرب البيت ما ضل عنا شيء قلت له لجوزي انه انا بدي اطلع على تركيا حتى لو بدي اعيش تحت شجره المهم بدي احمي اولادي.
If you take away the sound effects and use bad recorded audio quality, the video completely loses energy. Even though I'm using the same music by simply having better audio quality and adding some sound effects, the edit feels a lot more cinematic.
هلا خيالي كأم أحلامي إني أشوف أولادي في أعلى المراتب يعني. أما كامرأة يعني بحب يكون هيك إلي بصمة.
The most important thing to note is that if you want to do your sound well, you will most likely spend more time on sound than on visuals. Okay, that's it for differentiating between stills and video. Now the goal is for you to start shooting as soon as possible. First, let's talk cameras. I honestly believe that the time for DSLR video has come to an end, so it's not even part of this discussion. Having done quite a bit of photography myself, I can confidently say that Sony Alpha is the best hybrid system in the world, and I love being able to shoot stills and video with the same body, but with minimal effort. Mirrorless cameras outperform DSLRs in both photo and video, and the technological advancements not only makes me more efficient, but it enables me to get by with less. One of these advantages is an electronic viewfinder, or EVF. Unlike a DSLR that only has glass, the EVF is like having a second monitor that can display the same information that you see on your screen. An even bigger advancement, something that DSLRs also don't have, is in-body image stabilization, more commonly referred to as IBIS. I'll be using this term a lot going forward, so familiarize yourself with it. Sony calls it steady shot inside, but another general term to look out for in the specs is 5-axis sensor stabilization. Having IBIS is invaluable, and for me, it's the minimum requirement for what I'm looking for in a camera right now. With IBIS, the stabilization happens inside the body, so it doesn't matter what lens you put on. The camera itself stabilizes the footage on the inside, and this drastically reduces vibration and shake. With IBIS, all your lenses are stabilized, and I mean all lenses, from primes to vintage film and manual lenses. If you can adapt it to the body, the sensor will stabilize it. Why do I value IBIS so much? What if I told you that I shoot about 80% of my work just with my hands, that I've done entire shoots for some of my biggest clients, all handheld? I'm not just talking about an event, I've actually shot ads this way. In other words, no tripod and no gimbal, simply using my hands. There's many reasons for this, but my main motivation is that it enables me to work a lot faster. Framing up your shot is so much quicker and easier than on a tripod. For example, adjusting to the correct height is almost instant. Compared to shooting on a gimbal, you can instantly make adjustments on a camera because it's already in your hands. This allows you more time to capture valuable moments or events that happen on the fly. Support gear like gimbals and tripods always require a certain amount of time to set up and could potentially result in missing a shot that only happens once. Even on bigger productions where you have more time, you will always benefit from working faster, especially when you're shooting outside and you're trying to capitalize on good light. IBIS not only enables you to shoot handheld, but it also means that you don't have to invest into additional support gear if you don't have the budget, for example a gimbal. Gimbals are amazing because it allows you to do a variety of dynamic movements with ease, all with one tool, from tracking shots to jib shots and going around your subjects. This tool can become your best friend. But a mistake most newcomers make is thinking that operating a gimbal is easy. Although it eliminates shake, you still need a decent amount of practice to get more cinematic movements. It will take a few shoots and multiple practice sessions to get where you want, and you better start exercising those arms because they do get heavy. I should also add that combining your gimbal with IBIS will work even better, as the IBIS will help with small micro vibrations, and your gimbal footage will look smoother as well. The one piece of advice I can give for shooting on a gimbal is to bend your legs when you move, as this really helps to compensate for the ups and downs that come with walking. Sure, you might look silly when you operate it, but you have to ask yourself, do you want to look good or do you want to get a good shot? Let's say you don't have a budget for a gimbal, but you do have a tripod. Unless you're shooting weddings or continuous recordings, you don't really need a fluid head, so a simple photography tripod will suffice. For my kind of work, I never use pan or tilt shots on a tripod. But if I really had to, I will do the Dutch tilt, where you use the legs to bring in some movement. Basically, you fold up one leg and use the two legs as support while pushing the camera forward, backwards, or even sideways. This should only be attempted if you already have a tripod and you're on a budget, but I recommend investing in a gimbal as it's pretty much the standard these days. Sound. As mentioned earlier, sound is crazy important, so before you just jump into a shoot, you should acquire some form of sound recording equipment. If you're not actually recording people's voices or sound events on location, this is something you can skip for now, although you have to learn how to do sound design, something I will cover later on. As you start out, the best way to do interview sound is a lapel, or as most people call it, a lavalier or a lav mic. These microphones are small and attach onto the person's body and will give you much better audio than a microphone you will attach to your camera. There's a ton of options here, but depending on your budget, you have to decide between on-camera and off-camera sound. Off-camera sound is a much cheaper way to get great quality audio, but there are risks involved. The biggest challenge with off-camera sound is that you cannot monitor it from the camera, so you don't have that 100% guarantee that you're getting the right sound. Furthermore, you have to synchronize it in post. There are plugins that simplify this process, but you still need a way to help identify the timecode where the sound matches, and this is done by clapping. Camera rolling and sound.
So this is just a sound check. I'm about to start my interview and I hope I can remember my words.
Since the sound captured might be completely different from the two microphones, clapping creates a strong spike, almost like a signature, to identify it in the waveform in post. Try to clap in a different way for each interview, as this makes the spikes more unique. The lav mic should be placed as close to the mouth as possible, as this will give you a richer sound and also help with noise cancelling. When using off-camera sound, you have to be 100% sure that the microphone is not scratching against anything. So before you just jump into the interview, plug in your headphones and monitor the sound with the person talking and doing a variety of body and hand movements. You can hide the microphone inside their clothes by using specialized tape, but for on-the-go shoots, I usually just put it on the outside. The better alternative is to get a wireless transmitter that sends the signal from the lav directly into the camera, eliminating the time to synchronize and giving you the option to live monitor and adjust the levels when necessary. Next, we've got a shotgun microphone. A shotgun attached to your camera won't give you the same voice recording quality as a lav because it's further away from your subject, but for shooting on the go, an on-camera shotgun works really well.
But generally I use a car, so I've found myself in some pretty hairy situations with driving a car, especially in the beginning. So yeah, maybe I should have used the public transport a little bit more. But generally I use a car, so I've found myself in some pretty hairy situations with driving a car, especially in the beginning. So yeah, maybe I should have used the public transport a little bit more.
I use the Sony B1M because it not only delivers the best sound quality, but it's super small and compact. Rode also has a few options, but I recommend starting with something like the VideoMic Go because you don't need to power it with a battery. The VideoMic Pro is more professional, but also comes with a price and works with batteries. I believe one should have both, a lav and a shotgun, but this will depend on your requirements and budget. The shotgun often serves as a backup for the lav, but if I don't have the time to set up a lav, a shotgun does wonders. I'm not going to tell you to invest 100k into lights, because depending on what you buy, you might only end up with one light. When working on a budget and filming on the go, it's about what's practical and what will still deliver great results. What I will do is refer you to a video I created about getting great colors in your film, where I talked about my basic budget approach to light. A simple 5-in-1 reflector will work wonders and can add serious production value to your shoots. This small and inexpensive tool has helped me in countless situations, and I simply won't go on a shoot without one. I use it to bounce and diffuse harsh sunlight and to modify artificial light. For artificial light, I mostly use LED panels, but the goal is to diffuse or bounce the light to appear softer, eliminating harsh shadows and shine on the skin. For interviews, I make use of a Godox SL60 combined with a softbox, but these setups don't always work in the field, and this is when my 5-in-1 reflector and a simple LED panel does the trick. For interviews, it's easy since you can use light stands to support your gear, but what about B-roll? For this I have an assistant to follow me around with an LED light, combined with a diffuser from my 5-in-1 set. The following shots were done under severe time constraint, where setting up lights on stands were not possible. Having my assistant move around with the diffuser and LED light allowed us to get multiple shots, wide, medium and close-up, in order to tell a story. So these are the basics you need. A camera with a built-in stabilizer, or at least some form of support, like a gimbal. Add some sound and light to the mix and you can already start shooting. In part 2 and 3, we will focus on the practical implementation of this, as well as the post-production process, especially about sound design and finding music. That's it for now. Thanks so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you keep an eye on the Alpha Universe page for a continuous release of pre-recorded webinars and a variety of live sessions from all our ambassadors. Also, follow the Sony Alpha SA page on Facebook and Instagram for regular updates and promotions. Bye for now.